Lena Carter was rinsing the last milking clusters when she heard the truck long before she saw it. In their Appalachian valley, sound got trapped between mountain ridges. You learned to tell the difference between a neighbor's old Ford, a logging truck, or trouble coming around the bend. That afternoon, what was climbing their gravel road didn't sound right. It was heavier, faster, like whoever was behind the wheel wanted this delivery done and over with. Lena was third generation, trying not to lose this place. Carter Dairy didn't look like much if you were used to the big industrial operations near the highway. A weathered red barn leaning into the hillside, a low white milking parlor they'd built in the 90s, a farmhouse with peeling paint and a porch that had seen better days. 40 Holstein cows, 2 hired hands, 1 old border collie who thought he still ran everything. They were small, they were tired, but they were still here. In this valley, that alone made them rare. She wiped her hands on her jeans, pushed through the parlor door, and stepped into the cold March air. The sky wore that pale Appalachian blue, sharp and clean after 2 weeks of rain. You could still smell wet earth underneath the faint sour tang of manure. The hills around them were just starting to show a light green tint through the brown. Mitch, her husband, came out of the equipment shed with grease on his forearms and that permanent squint of a man who'd seen too many sunrises and too few vacations. "That our bull?" he asked, nodding toward the engine sound. "Better be," Lena said. "Bank doesn't give second chances around here." They'd maxed out their credit to buy a breeding dairy bull from a farm in Pennsylvania. Better genetics, higher butterfat in the milk, one more shot at staying competitive while big grocery chains quietly squeezed out family dairies like theirs. Kellen, their son, came jogging up from the lower pasture, phone already in his hand. 21, fresh out of ag school at West Virginia University, full of ideas about efficiency and data and things his grandfather would have called fancy nonsense and secretly admired. "He finally here?" Kellen asked, breath fogging in the cold. "Supposed to be," Lena said. The truck came around the curve. White cab, long silver livestock trailer behind it, mud splashed up the sides from a dozen other back roads. As it rolled past their mailbox and up the drive, some of their cows in the near pasture lifted their heads, ears twitching. The driver backed the trailer like he'd done it 1,000 times, straight up to their handling chute. A cloud of dust hung in the air behind him, catching the thin sunlight. He climbed down from the cab, jacket with the CrestView Livestock patch on the chest, cap pulled low. Up close, Lena noticed his eyes were tired the way people's eyes get when they spend more time on the road than at the dinner table. "Delivery for Carter Dairy," he said, holding out a clipboard. "1 bull, 3 years old. Sign right there, ma'am." Lena scanned the paper. Her name, their address, the lot number matched the email. 3-year-old bull, dairy breeding stock. Everything on the page looked right. Everything in her gut felt almost right, but not quite. "Long drive?" she asked, stalling, running her thumb along the lines. "Since yesterday morning," he said. "You'll want to get him out quick. He's been restless." "Jersey bulls usually travel calm," Lena said. "That's what we ordered." His jaw tightened once. Small movement. Enough. "He'll settle," he replied, eyes sliding past her toward the barn. "Just make sure everything's latched before you open that gate." He tried to say it like a joke, but it didn't land like one. Kellen walked up to the trailer, phone pointed at the ramp like he was already seeing the perfect social media video. "This guy's gonna save our butterfat test, Mom," he said, grinning. "At least let me get a picture of him looking majestic." "He's gotta arrive in one piece first," Lena said. "Then he can be majestic." The driver unlocked the rear gate. The sound of metal hitting metal was sharper than it should have been. The cattle in the pasture shifted. One of the calves bawled. He swung the gate wide. What came out of that trailer was not a dairy bull. The animal hit the ramp like a coiled spring, compact, muscled, quick, and mean. His coat was brown and white, stretched over the kind of muscle you see at rodeos on TV, not in a quiet Appalachian valley. The horns were tipped forward, but still thick enough to tear a person open if he wanted to. His hooves struck the ramp, and the whole structure shuddered. He spun the second he touched ground, slamming his shoulder into the side panel, testing it once, twice, like he was calculating how much force it would take to break free. "Jesus," Mitch whispered. That ain't no Jersey. That's a rodeo bull, Kellen said, voice gone flat the way it does when your brain's trying to process what your eyes already know. Or at least a rodeo cross. Lena looked at the driver. He was already backing toward the cab. Hey, she said sharply. This isn't the damn animal we ordered. Our paperwork. Any problems, call the office. He cut her off, nearly stumbling over his own words. CrestView handles it. I got 3 more deliveries before dark. He didn't wait for her to argue. The truck door slammed, the engine roared, and he was gone, leaving behind exhaust, dust, and 1,800 pounds of trouble in a pen made for animals who didn't think about escape every waking second of their lives. The bull's eyes never stopped moving. Ears flicking, nostrils flared, he paced the perimeter of the chute with his head slightly turned, never giving them his full back, never facing them square, not out of respect, out of calculation. Axel Drummond, their older hand, came up behind them. 60 years old, born 2 hills over, the kind of man who could tell if a cow was off just by the sound of her chewing. That's not just a rodeo animal, he said quietly. That's Corriente. Fast, half wild, wrong kind of creature for a place like this. Lena felt a cold settle in her stomach that no bank statement had ever managed. We can't keep him in that chute all afternoon, Mitch said. He'll break a rail or hurt himself, and we can't let him anywhere near the main herd, Axel added. He spooks, a Holstein breaks a leg, and you can kiss that cow goodbye along with next month's payment. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. The hills around them stood so still, it felt like the whole valley was holding its breath, waiting to see what they'd do with the mistake that had been done to them. Lena took a step toward the gate, careful, slow. The bull's ears swiveled toward her. He stopped pacing just long enough for their eyes to meet. What she saw there wasn't the mindless rage she expected. It was fear. Pure, sharp, focused. The fear of something uprooted, thrown into a world that didn't smell or sound or look like anything it knew. He's scared, Lena said quietly. Scared things are dangerous things, Axel replied. You know that. Yeah, Lena said. That's why we're not leaving him in a 6x6 box to go crazy. She pointed to the back of their property, where the fence climbed up a narrow, rough pasture along the tree line. We move him to the high field, strongest fence we've got, away from the barn, away from the herd. Keep him alone till CrestView calls back Monday. What if they don't? Mitch asked. Then we'll solve the next problem when we get there, Lena said. Right now, this one's big enough. It took 4 adults, 2 panels they dragged like shields, and every ounce of nerve Lena had left from a lifetime on this hard land to move that bull up the lane to the upper field. Twice he feinted like he'd charge. Once he turned so fast her heart stopped. But he didn't hit them. He didn't rush. He watched. He measured. He waited. When the gate finally slammed shut behind him and the chain clicked home, he took off at a dead run, following the fence line like he was drawing the borders of his new prison. The sound of his hooves echoed off the hills, turning one animal into an army in her ears. Kellen raised his phone again, started filming. Don't post any of that, Lena said, sharper than she meant to. He lowered the phone, stung. Why not? People would go crazy for this. You know how many views? Because until we figure out what he means for us, Lena said, not taking her eyes off the bull. I'm not turning him into a spectacle for anybody. The bull finally slowed, chest heaving, breath coming out in white bursts in the cold air. He stopped near the far corner, between an old oak tree and the sagging part of the boundary fence she'd always meant to fix. From there, he looked down at their small dairy, at the barn, the parlor, the white farmhouse that had watched her grandparents grow old and her parents die too young. From there, he saw everything. Just a weekend, Lena muttered to herself as they walked back toward the house. We get through a weekend. They fix the screw-up they made. He goes back where he belongs. End of story. But as the sun dropped behind the mountain ridge and the valley fell into shadow, one unwelcome thought settled in the back of her mind. What if, on paper, he'd been sent to the wrong farm, but the valley somehow knew exactly what it was doing? She didn't know yet, standing there in the Appalachian dusk, but that truck hadn't just brought them a problem. It had delivered the story that would put their small, quiet dairy on everyone's lips in this valley, and far beyond it. The farmhouse kitchen smelled like burnt coffee and worry. Lena sat at the table with her phone pressed to her ear, listening to the automated loop for the fourth time. CrestView Livestock. Our offices are currently closed. Business hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If this is an emergency... She hung up. Emergencies apparently only counted during business hours. Mitch stood at the window, staring out toward the high field where the bull was barely visible in the fading light. A dark shape pacing along the fence line, restless even as night settled in. He hasn't stopped moving since we put him up there, Mitch said quietly. He's scared, Lena replied, setting the phone down harder than she meant to. New place, new smells, everything wrong. Or he's looking for weak spots, Axel said from the doorway. He'd refused to go home, said he'd sleep in the barn tonight just in case. That's what wild things do, they test boundaries. Kellen came down the stairs, laptop open in his hands. I've been looking at the paperwork. Mom, everything checks out. Our order number, the lot ID, even the livestock registration matches what they sent us. Except the animal, Lena said. Except the animal, Kellen agreed. But on paper, it's perfect. Too perfect. The room went quiet except for the old refrigerator humming in the corner. What are you saying? Mitch asked, turning from the window. Kellen set the laptop on the table, screen facing them. I'm saying I don't think this was a mistake. I think someone sent us exactly what they meant to send and made sure the paperwork would protect them if we tried to fight it. That doesn't make sense, Lena said. But even as the words left her mouth, a sick feeling spread through her chest. Why would they do that? I don't know yet, Kellen said. But I started looking at reviews for CrestView online. 3 other small farms in Virginia and Tennessee reported getting wrong animals in the last 6 months. All of them had paperwork that matched. All of them were told it was their problem to solve. Axel moved into the room, his weathered face hard in the dim kitchen light. And what happened to those farms? Kellen's jaw tightened. 2 of them sold out within a year. The third is fighting a lawsuit from CrestView for refusing payment. The refrigerator's hum seemed louder now, filling the silence like static. Lena stood up, walked to the window beside Mitch. Out in the darkness, she could just make out the bull's shape, still pacing. She thought about her grandparents, who'd built this place from nothing. Her parents, who'd died trying to keep it alive. 3 generations of Carters, holding on to this land like it was the only thing that mattered. Because it was. We're not selling, she said quietly. Lena, Mitch started. We're not selling, she repeated, louder now. I don't care what they sent us or why they did it. This is our land, our dairy, and we're not giving it up because some corporation decided to play games. Kellen closed the laptop. So, what do we do? Lena turned to face them, and in that moment she looked exactly like her grandmother had. Small, tired, but absolutely unmovable. We document everything. Kellen, you take pictures, video, all of it. Axel, you know anyone at the State Agriculture Department? Lucas Danner, Axel said. Good man. Used to inspect dairies before they cut his department's budget. Call him first thing Monday morning, Lena said. Mitch, check every inch of that upper fence. If that bull gets out and hurts someone, we lose everything anyway. And tonight? Mitch asked. Lena looked back out the window at the dark shape in the field, still moving, still searching. Tonight we take shifts watching him, 2-hour rotations. If he tries to break through, we need to know immediately. Axel nodded slowly. I'll take first watch. I'll go second, Kellen said. Mitch put his hand on Lena's shoulder. We'll get through this. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that hard work and honesty still counted for something in this valley, that families like theirs could still survive against corporations with lawyers and perfect paperwork. But as she watched the bull pace in the darkness, testing his prison one step at a time, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that this was exactly what someone had wanted. To watch them struggle, to watch them fail, and maybe finally to watch them break. Get some rest, she told them. It's going to be a long weekend. As they dispersed, Axel heading to the barn, Kellen to his room, Mitch to check the fence one more time, Lena stood alone in the kitchen, staring out at the animal that had arrived in the wrong place. Or maybe, she thought again, exactly the right one. Saturday morning broke cold and gray over the valley. Lena had slept maybe 3 hours, startled awake twice by sounds that turned out to be nothing. A tree branch scraping the roof, the wind rattling the barn door. But each time, her mind went straight to the bull, wondering if this was the moment everything fell apart. She was pouring her second cup of coffee when she heard tires on gravel. Through the kitchen window, she saw Jake Whitaker's pickup rolling up the drive. Jake ran the cattle operation 2 properties over, a sprawling ranch that had been in his family as long as the Carters had been in theirs. He was Mitch's age, weathered and quiet, the kind of neighbor who showed up when you needed help and never mentioned it again. Lena met him on the porch. "Morning," Jake said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Heard you had some trouble yesterday." "Word travels fast," Lena said. "Always does." Jake shifted his weight, hands in his jacket pockets. "Mind if I take a look at him?" They walked together up to the high field. The bull stood near the far fence, head lowered, watching them approach. In the morning light, he looked even more out of place, all raw power and coiled energy, built for arena dirt, not dairy pastures. Jake leaned against the fence, studying the animal with the practiced eye of someone who'd worked cattle his whole life. "Corriente cross," he said finally. "Maybe some Brahma in there too. Fast, smart, mean when cornered." "That's what Axel said," Lena replied. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then, "This the first wrong delivery CrestView's made to you?" Something in his tone made Lena turn. "Why?" "Because it's not the first one they've made in this valley." Jake pulled a worn piece of paper from his pocket, unfolded it carefully. 6 months ago, I ordered breeding heifers. What I got was 3 steers, castrated males, useless for breeding." Lena took the paper. It was an invoice from CrestView Livestock. Everything looked correct. Jake's name, his address, the order details. Except for one line that had been changed, so cleanly she almost missed it. "They altered it after delivery," Jake said. "I signed for heifers. When I complained, they sent me this showing I'd ordered steers. My signature, their paperwork, no way to prove otherwise." "What did you do?" "Paid for animals I couldn't use and sold them at a loss," Jake said, bitterness creeping into his voice. "Took a $5,000 hit, nearly lost my insurance because I couldn't make the premium." Lena looked back at the bull, her stomach turning. "They're doing this on purpose." "I think so," Jake said. "Small farms, all of them family operations, all of them struggling. Send the wrong animal, make sure the paperwork's perfect, force them to take the loss. Some farms can't recover. They sell. Then guess who buys the land?" "CrestView," Lena said quietly. "Or one of their holding companies." Jake folded the paper, put it back in his pocket. "I didn't have proof, just a feeling. But when I heard about your bull, I figured you should know what you're up against." They stood in silence, watching the animal pace. "You gonna fight them?" Jake asked. Lena thought about the farmhouse behind her, the barn her grandfather built, the land that held 3 generations of her family's sweat and dreams. She thought about corporations with lawyers, altered paperwork, and small farms disappearing one mistake at a time. "Yeah," she said, "I'm gonna fight them." Jake nodded slowly. "Then you're gonna need help, and evidence they can't explain away. You got any ideas?" "One," Jake said, "but it's risky. You know Evan Harper, the vet?" "Sure. He's treated our herd for years." "He used to work for CrestView, left about a year ago. Wouldn't say why, but he's hated them ever since." Jake met her eyes. "If anyone knows how their operation works, it's him." Lena felt something shift inside her, fear giving way to determination. "Can you call him?" "Already did," Jake said. "He'll be here this afternoon. Said he wants to see that bull for himself." As they walked back toward the house, Lena realized something had changed. This wasn't just about surviving a bad delivery anymore. This was about fighting back. And maybe, just maybe, exposing something that needed to be dragged into the light. Evan Harper arrived just after 2 o'clock, driving a dusty Ford truck with veterinary equipment rattling in the bed. He was younger than Lena expected, maybe 40, with tired eyes and the careful movements of someone who'd learned not to trust easily. When he shook her hand, his grip was firm, but his smile didn't quite reach his face. "Thanks for coming," Lena said. "Jake said you got one of CrestView's special deliveries," Evan replied, his voice flat. "I wanted to see it for myself." They walked up to the high field together, Lena, Evan, Mitch, and Kellen. Axel was already there, leaning against the fence, watching the bull with the same wary attention he'd had since yesterday. Evan stood at the fence for a long time, studying the animal. The bull had stopped pacing, standing motionless in the center of the field, watching them back. "Corriente Brahma Cross," Evan said finally. "Maybe 4 years old, not 3 like your paperwork says. See the way he holds his head? That's not fear. That's calculation. He's been in arenas before. Probably bucking stock." "Can you prove that?" Kellen asked, phone ready to record. "Not without running his brand through the rodeo registry," Evan said. "But I'd bet my license that's what he is." He turned to Lena. "How much did you pay for him?" $8,500, Lena said, her voice tight. Evan let out a low whistle. "A breeding dairy bull, that's fair market price. This animal? He's worth maybe $3,000 as bucking stock. You got robbed and they made it legal." "How many times have they done this?" Mitch asked. Evan's jaw worked for a moment before he answered. "When I worked for them, I saw it happen at least a dozen times. Always small farms, always perfect paperwork, always animals that were worth half what the customer paid." "Why'd you leave?" Lena asked. "Because I got tired of watching good people lose everything while my bosses got rich." Evan's voice had an edge now, anger barely contained. "I tried reporting it to the agriculture department. They said without evidence of deliberate fraud, it was just clerical errors. Mistakes happen, they said." "These aren't mistakes," Axel said quietly. "No," Evan agreed. "They're not. CrestView targets farms that are already struggling. They send wrong animals, collect payment, and wait. Most farms can't afford the legal fight, so they either accept the loss or refuse to pay and get sued. Either way, CrestView wins." Kellen stopped recording. "So how do we prove it?" Evan pulled a folded envelope from his jacket. "Before I left, I made copies. Shipping manifests, internal emails, delivery schedules. Nothing that explicitly proves fraud, but enough to show a pattern. Small farms getting wrong deliveries, always with perfect paperwork, always losing money." He handed the envelope to Lena. "I've been waiting for someone brave enough to use this. Someone who wouldn't back down." Lena opened the envelope, scanning the documents inside. Shipping numbers, addresses, dates. A trail of deliberate destruction disguised as honest mistakes. "If we go public with this," Mitch said carefully, "we're starting a war." "They started it," Lena said, her voice hard. "We're just finishing it." Evan nodded. "There's one more thing. Lucas Danner at the State Agriculture Department. He's the only inspector who ever questioned CrestView's operation. They got him reassigned, but he never stopped digging. If you combine what I have with what he's found, you might have enough to force a real investigation." "Might?" Kellen asked. "CrestView has lawyers, money, and friends in high places," Evan said. "This won't be easy. They'll fight back hard. Your farm could become a target in ways you haven't imagined." Lena looked out at the bull, still standing motionless in the field. She thought about all the other farms that had faced this same choice, fight or surrender. Most had surrendered, but surrender meant losing everything her family had built. "Set up the meeting with Danner," she said. "Monday morning. And Evan, thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Evan said. "This is just the beginning." As they walked back to the house, Lena felt the weight of what they were about to do. This wasn't just about one wrong bull anymore. It was about every small farm that had been pushed out, every family that had lost their land to corporate greed disguised as clerical errors. The bull in the high field wasn't a mistake. He was evidence, and Lena intended to use him. Monday morning came with frost on the grass and Lucas Danner's gray sedan pulling up the drive at 7:30 sharp. He was older than Lena expected, maybe 65, with silver hair and the careful posture of a man who'd spent a career navigating bureaucracy. But his eyes were sharp, missing nothing as he surveyed the farm. "Mrs. Carter," he said, shaking her hand, "Evan Harper's been telling me about your situation." They gathered in the farmhouse kitchen. Lena, Mitch, Kellen, Axel, Evan, Jake, and Lucas. The table was covered with documents, Evan's copied manifests, Jake's altered invoice, Kellen's research on other affected farms, and the original CrestView paperwork for their bull. Lucas spent 20 minutes reviewing everything in silence, making notes in a small leather notebook. Finally, he looked up. "This is good," he said. "Very good. But it's not quite enough." "What do you mean?" Lena asked, feeling her hope deflate. "I mean, CrestView will argue these are isolated incidents, clerical errors across different departments over several months. To prove deliberate fraud, we need something that ties it all together. A smoking gun." "Like what?" Kellen asked. Lucas tapped the shipping manifest. "Like proof they knew exactly what they were sending. Documentation that shows intent, not accident." Evan leaned forward. "There might be something. When I worked there, all livestock transfers went through a central database. Every animal had a digital profile: breed, age, value, destination. If we could access that system, we could prove they knew they were sending wrong animals." "Can you access it?" Mitch asked. "Not anymore," Evan said. "They changed all the passwords after I left." The room went quiet, hope fading as quickly as it had sparked. Then Kellen stood up, grabbed his laptop. "What if we don't need to hack their system? What if we make them show us?" Everyone turned to look at him. "I've been documenting everything since the bull arrived," Kellen continued, opening his laptop. "Video, photos, timestamps. What if we post it online? Not just the bull, but the whole story. The documents Evan brought, Jake's invoice, the other farms. Make it go viral. Force CrestView to respond publicly." "They'll just deny everything," Jake said. "Probably," Kellen agreed. "But if enough people see it, if enough reporters start asking questions, the state will have to investigate. And once investigators get subpoena power, they can access CrestView's database legally." Lucas nodded slowly. "It's risky. CrestView could sue for defamation." "Let them," Lena said, surprising herself with her own certainty. "Everything we're saying is true. Let them try to prove otherwise in court." Mitch put his hand on her shoulder. "You sure about this?" Lena thought about the farms that had already been lost, the families displaced, the way of life disappearing one mistake at a time. She thought about her grandparents, her parents, the land that had sustained them through depression and drought and every hardship in between. "I'm sure," she said. Kellen's fingers were already flying across the keyboard. "I'll write the post, put together the video. We can have it ready by tonight. I'll contact the Agriculture Committee," Lucas said. "Officially request an investigation. Your story will give me leverage." "I'll talk to the other affected farms," Jake added. "Get them to come forward. There's strength in numbers." Evan gathered his documents. "And I'll reach out to journalists I know. This is the kind of story they love. Small farms fighting back against corporate corruption." As the meeting broke up and people headed out to their tasks, Lena walked up to the high field one last time. The bull stood near the oak tree, calmer now than he'd been since arrival. Maybe he sensed the shift too, that he wasn't just a problem anymore. He was proof. "You're gonna help us," Lena said softly. "Whether you meant to or not." That evening, Kellen hit publish. Within hours, the story was spreading, shared across farming communities, picked up by local news, gaining momentum like a stone rolling downhill. By Tuesday morning, a reporter from the regional newspaper was calling. By Wednesday, CrestView's corporate office issued a statement denying all allegations. But the damage was done. Lucas's investigation was approved. More farms came forward. And somewhere in CrestView's gleaming headquarters, executives were scrambling to cover tracks they'd thought were perfectly hidden. 3 weeks later, the state agriculture department seized CrestView's servers. What they found matched everything Evan had documented and more. A systematic operation targeting vulnerable farms, altering records, and profiting from manufactured crises. The company faced criminal charges. Its executives resigned. And slowly, impossibly, farms like Carter Dairy began to win their cases, reclaim their losses, and rebuild. The bull, who Kellen had nicknamed Justice online, much to Lena's annoyance, was eventually returned to the rodeo company he'd been stolen from. They didn't charge for the transport. Standing on her porch that spring evening, watching the sun set over the valley, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not because the fight was over, it never really was in farming, but because they'd proven that small farms could still stand up. That truth still mattered. That one wrong delivery in the right hands could change everything. The valley had known what it was doing after all.